No, I come here. I just work from here every single day. Drop the kids off at school. Come here. I'm here probably until about 4 o'clock typically during the day, and whenever I've got an hour spare, I go in the gym.
Right, fair enough. That's not a bad way to do it. 1 hour spare, crack out some sets. That's not a bad thing at all. Get into shape. You know what? I've been obviously doing a bunch of conferences and stuff. The conference photos have actually come back, and I look amazing, like above the shoulder. Below the shoulder, any full body shot, I'm looking at that and thinking, my goodness, that body composition is a disgrace. So yeah, I've got basically a short window of time, as in 3 weeks, to get rid of some of that excess.
Why? What happens in 3 weeks? You got your topless photo shoot.
That's it. Yeah, it's my calendar, isn't it?
Oh, of course.
No, it's not. It's just yet more on stage stuff. So I just don't like to appear on stage looking out of shape. And very evidently, I'm out of shape. So anyway, welcome everybody to Brainfood Live on Air, bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. I'm back in sunny UK. Pleased to say that the weather is looking like a spring, and yeah, I'm going to be here for the next 4 weeks, so it's going to be awesome to be having a chat with you on a number of different topics. By the way, folks, I am a bit late in getting the March to April schedule out. I am starting to send that out. Some of you have received it, but the full schedule has been planned. So if you want to check out what's going on before I notify you, you can actually do that. You can follow the channel anyway, and that way you get notified. We've got an amazing lineup for you for the next several weeks. Okay, let's do some sound checks first of all. For the folks who are watching this on Crowdcast, do let me know whether you can hear me okay. Just drop me a comment in the chat room, the chat stream there, should I say, folks, and let me know whether you can hear and see me okay. We are also broadcasting this live. I think we're back on LinkedIn. We had some problems with LinkedIn obviously before, but I think that has been resolved. Let me just quickly check whether you can hear and see me on LinkedIn. If so, just let me know in the comments, by the way, whether the audio video is fine. Let me just do a quick check. Okay, I can see on mobile. I'm actually there. Okay, amazing. Let's get on with it. So as ever, welcome Adam Gordon. Adam, good to see you. My throat is still a bit dodgy, so you might need to still do a bit of carrying when I start gasping, and we can see where we go. But anyway, how you been, Adam? You been all right?
Yeah, I have. I've been very good. I've been doing a lot of work this week on retrieval augmentation, which is a generative AI concept, and something that is going to become very, very important in my life.
Well, this is called RAG, isn't it? People call it RAG, R-A-G. Can you give? You might as well give us a quick précis as to what that is for people who are interested in this, heard about it for the first time.
Yeah, sure. It's all about being able to aggregate a whole load of data that you have within your database, and being able to automatically turn that into the very, very best kind of prompts that are going into a large language model to then return for you exactly what it is you need. It's the step between just like prompt engineering, is writing good prompts, and fine tuning, which is actually downloading a large language model and then training it. You can't do that unless you actually download it. So there's a lot of people talking about fine tuning large language models, and they're just not doing anything like that. They're probably just doing prompt engineering, or they may be doing RAG, retrieval augmentation generation. So that's what I've been spending my week on. And
well, get good. Right. Get good at that. We're going to have to learn a bit more about that. Recruiters need to know about it, because that evolving space between how we interact with AI, I think, is very, very interesting. It's not, we know now it's not just a simple case of magically producing outputs based on our instructions. Our instructions need to get better, but also, we can't be, it's probably a negative direction if we end up having to be massively skillful or doing prompts. We want to actually make it easier to do that. Otherwise, prompts become just another form of engineering. Anyway, very good, folks. As ever, we have to thank our sponsors for Brainfood Live on Air every week. A great company comes up and makes sure that this show stays on the road. This week, it is one of the US, I think it's the leading US background screening checker coming over to the UK, internationalizing also. So make sure you check them out if you haven't got a background screening solution to date. It is Checker, of course. I think they are the leading player in the field at this point. And these days, I don't think you can get away with not having some sort of solution. There's a compliance risk, obviously, but that shouldn't be the thing that really drives you to adopt sort of a strengthened screening process, simply because we're moving down into a world where fraud risk is going to increase. Generative AI is going to confuse standard recruitment processes. We're going to need to be a lot tighter in understanding who people are and getting the verification right and all the rest of it. So it's, I think, one of those areas, I believe, where recruiters will actually become inheriting a larger component of that function. It's no longer an admin thing you stick at the back. Companies are going to want to know whether you are gatekeeping properly. So check out Checker, leading product in the industry. Okay, cool. Let's get on with it. Let's do a quick review of last week's newsletter. Adam, give me a sort of a review as to what's interesting.
Right. Well, I mean, you talked about generative AI, and we need to learn more about how to do it and stuff like that. And so this is just a quick call out to everybody who has received Hunk's newsletter from Sunday. Please do take part in the poll, which says, where is your TA team in your organization when it comes to like leading the conversation on this? Because I think the options are like, you know, we're leading it in our organization. We're sort of like keeping pace with other teams, or we're kind of really lagging behind, that type of thing. I'd love to know if TA is actually ahead of other teams when it comes to this. And I don't have any like notion of where we are. But why I wanted to mention that is because the results from last week's poll were also very interesting. Are you changing your ATS this year? So 54% of people said, no, we're sticking with what we've got. So I'm surprised at this from two reasons. The first reason is because everybody complains about their ATS. So why it's not like 94% instead of 54%, I don't know. But at the same time, I do see a lot of people changing their ATS and thinking that that's the golden key to really great talent acquisition. But in actual fact, there's not a huge amount of difference between a lot of them. So, you know, the grass is greener is something that I think we're really suffering from, and we spend a disproportionate amount of time on thinking about our ATS and changing our ATS. That's my personal belief. There's other more qualified people on this going to be joining us today to talk about this, but interested to know what your comments are on that.
Yeah, we're going to do a show on this. Like, how do you make the decision to change your ATS? Because you don't want to be just a person jumping on the bandwagon or doing a fashion, you know, it's a fashionable thing to do, or because you want a big project, you go and do it. There has to be a really good reason. But yeah, are we trying to fix all problems with the tool when in fact the problems are actually maybe not tool based? Having said all of that, I think there is a variation in terms of the quality and service levels you get from different products, particularly if you are leaning heavily on one thing or leaning heavily on another. You might actually think, you know what, we really need to improve how, you know, we handle our international recruitment or whatever it is, and product you might have might not fit for that. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to do. Go on.
Every week, I hear several companies telling me that they're moving from product X to product Y, and I think to myself, product X is just a way of managing your vacancies, workflow your vacancies, and product Y is just exactly the same. You're like literally going for a like for like swap, which is a complete waste of your time. So if you're going to make a change in your ATS, make it a damn good change. That would be my
making an upgrade. It's similar. I wonder whether it's similar to football management, where you get a bit desperate. You're not too happy with what the situation is. There's actually an underlying problem. It's got very little to do with the manager, but the manager hasn't proven the ability to overcome it. So you just swap him out and then get someone else in. And it's like, maybe it's a little bit like that, you know?
Yeah, I'm the head of TA. The team's not performing. Either I throw myself under the bus or I get rid of the ATS and blame that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I think one of the first things that does happen is that ATS turnover probably tracks head of TA turnover quite tightly, in the sense that new person comes in, you know, maybe you coming into a suboptimal situation. The first thing you might think of doing, right, clean house, getting a new product, and then, you know, it's good for your CV, quote unquote, which undeniably so. You get a experience of doing implementation. That's also very good for you. So there's a few disaligned incentives in all of that, which might actually start triggering the switcheroo. Having said that, there's good products out there, and I think the products are getting better. And there's now more entrants into this field from point solutions and so on. So it may not be a bad time to do a bit of shopping around. But anyway, yeah, every week we do a big poll on Brainfood, so make sure you vote on that when we roll it out. Okay, cool. Gives another moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, LinkedIn's Future of Recruiting report. I mean, first of all, like, chapeau for the quality of that piece of production. It looks beautiful. It's easy to understand. The statistics are impactful, easy to follow what it's all about. It said six kind of main things that are coming for talent acquisition. So number one was that AI is going to supercharge recruiting. I don't think there's an awful lot of people who are going to disagree with that. So I'll move on from that one. The second one is recruiting's going to lead the way when it comes to creating the skills-based future workforce. And again, I think that there was maybe number 5, I think it was also recruiting is going to lead the way when it comes to the future flex workforce. Now, you could argue that, you know, a skills-based workforce and a flexible workforce is really in the interests of recruiters being able to do their job and get their recs filled more easily. But at the same time, I totally agree. And I think that we in talent acquisition definitely have to lead the way on this, because I don't think anybody else is going to, but it's for the benefits of the organization to do so. And there was one other one that they talked about, which was quality of, so which of the following, like, there must have been a big list. I didn't see what the big list was, but which of the following things are going to really, like, top the recruiting agenda over the next 5 years? 54% of people said that quality of hire was, and that got the most votes out of all of them. 49% said employer branding, 47% said candidate experience, 40%, I think it was, said upskilling and reskilling. Now, actually, I'm pretty certain that should be number one, because, like, the composition of the tasks that need to be done within an organization is changing at light speed. And unless we're going to become order takers, we need to be influencing what that all looks like, I think. But that report is absolutely, it's beautiful to look at. It's really nice to read. And it is a great, for anybody, whether you're in recruitment or you're not, if any of your friends want to know what you do, send them that report.
Did you see me in it, mate?
I did not see you in it. I saw John Vlastelica in it and some other people, but I didn't see you.
Yeah, I was on the addendum page right at the end. No, I was actually, I didn't realize I was actually quoted in it, but I was. But it's, yeah, a really readable report. I actually critiqued it a little bit because I thought, you know what, a lot of data was a combination of behavioral data on the platform, which I really lean more towards, and also survey data. And the survey data I felt was a little bit aspirational. So in other words, the predictions that TA would, for instance, expand scope to start taking on the total talent universe and all that type of stuff. Okay, let's see the evidence for that, because I think we're still locked into payroll rather than expanding into other areas. Talking about skills-based hiring, are we running that, or is it going to be L&D? I mean, it should be, you know, it's debatable who actually is involved or should be involved or leading that conversation. And it kind of segues to what we're talking about today. Like, are we being left behind when we're talking about the future imagination of the the organization. I'm going to bring on a few folks to talk about that as well. So anyway, right, let's keep going. One more before we move on, because obviously time is pressing.
One more, because we've got brilliant guests. Let's get them on as soon as possible. But one more. Another report that I read every year is Appcast's Recruitment Marketing Benchmark Report. So 2024 is out. Great read, simple to understand. 3 things that I wanted to highlight. Number one, and they're all really straightforward things. Number one, cost per hire is down, because of supply and demand, but also as a result, cost per click / cost per application is also therefore down. The second one is in terms of like applications, Monday to Friday clearly still dominates, with a focus on earlier in the week. And I think that's because people have had a good weekend and then they go into work on a Monday and they're like, I don't want to be doing this. This is nonsense. I'm going to start looking for jobs. Yeah. And then the third one was very clear call to action. Stop putting contrived job titles out there. Like, just because your job has got like a 5 letter acronym in the middle of it and like 7 other words in it, that's the actual job title in the HR system. Do not use that in your job advert. Your job advert is not a legal document, it's marketing. So stop using really like random job titles that are bespoke to your organization.
That's actually a really consistent message by Appcast data. Use industry known nomenclature, it just converts more. So if you're, whether this is a problem today in 2024, I don't know, but if you're struggling to get applicant flow, you want to increase applicant flow, you want to use industry standard job titles, even if all the employer branding folks are saying you got to jazz this up. No, you don't. Just describe what it is and stick it in there, because that's how people typically would search. And that's where you get more clicks. Debatable whether you want to throttle that. If you get too many, maybe you want to put your idiosyncratic names in. But yeah, the Appcast report is a must read. This year they've actually segmented it: UK, US. I think they're going to go Europe as well separately. So just keep an eye on what they're doing. You probably want a copy of each, because I think there's going to be some differences between those populations. But great report.
You've just said something that I've never thought about before. It's made me think about something, and I'd love to know more about this. But the impact of throttling on diversity, right? Men apply for everything. Like Manchester United new manager job. Yeah, I'll go for that. I know football. Women take longer, don't apply for as many things, and really want to make sure that they are. So is throttling count negative towards the diversity in applications?
It's a very good point.
Logically, it would be.
That's a very good point. I don't know.
Jim Beresford, what do you think? He's in the recruitment advertising area. Anybody here from Appcast or anything else? Oh, Stephen Rothberg, you're in it too.
Well, I tell you what, we should do another show on that, to say what language you could use to try and encourage more applicants from underrepresented groups, let's say, because I think that's the direction of travel we want to go in. But what exactly are those languages? What are those language changes? You can pipe it into ChatGPT and it can produce it for you. But I think it might be quite educational from a psychology perspective to understand, okay, here are the terminologies that actually would encourage more female applicants than otherwise. Let me know in the comments, folks. Would that be interesting? We'll do that show if it is.
But really specifically, you put your job up, you get 100 applicants in 10 minutes, you then switch it off. How many of those 100 applicants are men? 99?
That's a good point. Like, how fast? Maybe, I don't know.
Because they've just gone, I'm applying for everything.
Yep, that's an interesting one. Like, if women do take longer, then presumably the shorter your ad stays live. And Andrew Godowski is very sharp on this, like very quick to switch jobs on and off based on, it's a tap, throttling the pipe and so on. That makes sense. But you know what? If men apply earlier with less reading and they just go straight for it, then actually predominantly the early applicants may skew male before it becomes more even as you go on. So yeah, really interesting.
Stop throttling.
Yeah. All right. Let's just bring on some of our guests. We're going to be talking about our sort of HRTA in the room. I'm going to bring on Jason Seiden. I'm going to bring on Madeline Laurano, and I'm going to bring on Paul Maxin as well. I'm going to get, let's see, Madeline, is she there? I think I saw her there at one point. There we go. There's Madeline. There we go. Oh my God! Why is everyone like not actually in, you know, at home and comfortable? You know, people are in gyms. They're in. It looks like he's pulled into a lay-by there. I mean, what's going on, Jason?
On the go, right?
At least Madeline and Paul look as if they're at home and comfortable. All right, let's do some intros real quick. Jason, quickly introduce yourself. Who are you? What it is you do?
I don't even know. Jason Seiden. Right now, I'm consulting. I've got a company called Brainstorm with my wife, who some of you know, Lisa Cervenka, brand nerd, who I just dropped off at a coffee shop. I could do this from the car. And I've been in this industry for almost 3 decades. So let's just move on. I don't want to think about what I do or how long I've been doing this.
But we're going to have more chat from you, Jason, because you were the one that kickstarted this, inspired this this topic. So we'll come back to you in a sec. Let's go with you, Paul. Paul, can you quickly intro yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Sure. For the last few years, I've been running a small consultancy called MaxinTalent, and I work with a number of clients on talent acquisition, in particular strategy, transition and transformation. I also do some external advisory work as well, mainly from home, as you can see. Like Jason, been around the block a few times. I think I'm just coming up to nearly 4 decades now. I can't believe it. That's enough.
It's
not out of pasture.
A fantastic innings, Paul, and please stay with us 4 decades and give us another 10 years. That would be amazing, mate. All right, and we have Madeline Laurano as well. Madeline, wonderful to see you as always. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Sure, I'm so excited to be here. Madeline Laurano. So I'm the founder of a company called Aptitude Research, and we do research on HR technology. I've been in the space for many decades too. I don't even want to count because I used to say 1 decade and it's gone up and up and up.
We're all plural decades now, Madeline. No shame on us grey hairs here. Okay, Jason, we're going to go with you first because I want you to describe the post that you wrote, which I thought was actually outstanding, by the way. It went into Brainfood. I hope many of you read it. But I thought it was actually the first time someone had strongly articulated a view, which I kind of had the feeling was the case, but no one had actually put it into words what the scenario was. So I wonder whether you could just describe what that post was and what inspired you to write it, and what you think, why you think it's an important sort of statement to make.
Yeah, thank you. And by the way, thank you. Just for your comments and for pulling it in for the discussion, because it's one point of view, and I think like a lot of people in our space, strongly held, strong opinion, loosely held. You know, so I'm eager to hear other folks' take on this. The gist of it was this: there's a transformation afoot, and this is not a talent acquisition transformation. This is not an HR transformation. This is a societal transformation. We are riding a much bigger wave. And as I've been talking with corporate leaders lately, something struck me, which was when I would talk with TA leaders and HR leaders, the conversations were qualitatively different than when I talked to CEOs and CFOs and COOs. When I talked to the heads of companies, I was hearing about the strategic impact of AI and the need for analytics. And it was top down, and it was like, this is going to change our business. And people are saying things like, we want to move quickly, but we can't move too quickly because we might cannibalize our business. Or we have private equity on our cap table, so we are committed to a certain level of revenue. What happens if we're more profitable, but we're making less money because there's some disinflationary pressure? I mean, really big kinds of stuff. To heads of talent, and I would hear in earnest, and these are not bad thoughts. I don't want to. This is not like anybody did something wrong, but the level of the conversation was just different. One person was saying the most important, highest level investment they could make in AI at a company level was prompt engineering. Like, teach us how to make these prompts, use Chat GPT or one of the other programs. And I'm like, that's important, but that's not at the same level. If you're talking to me and for 30 minutes we're talking about transformation, that is a society level transformation, prompt engineering is not your lead. That's not the top. And so when I started poking into that, I realized we've got to up our game in TA. We have to show up better. So whether the conversation is AI or skills based, which I think is probably the same conversation, or ethics, we need to plug in at the highest level. We need to plug in to the conversation that the corporate leaders are having and make that connection between what we're doing here and what's happening up there. And if we don't, then this change is going to happen to us rather than with us. And that the article goes into more depth, but that was the impetus for it, Hung, as I was having these conversations and just I could not avoid the disconnect that I kept seeing between how HR and TA were talking about it and how the rest of the business was talking about this transformation.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you for setting that up, Jason. And by the way, folks, I think Jason truly meant it when he said, strong opinion loosely held. So if you do have a contesting position or you disagree with that's the scenario, do let me know in the comments. Like, where do you feel generally that HR and TA are within this? I mean, I'm sure there'll be some organizations out there that HR and TA are actually leading the show and driving things forward. But general sense, where are we? Let us know in the comments there. And Madeline, let's go to you on this. You're a researcher. You're one of the industry analysts that is very widely respected. Occasionally, I get misidentified and I get somehow looped into an email that you're on, and I'm thinking, I just write a newsletter. I shouldn't be there where Madeline is.
When you say misidentified, by the way,
I don't see myself as an analyst.
You don't look anything like, right? Okay, I see. Professionally misidentified.
No, absolutely. I'm pretty clear who I am from a biographical point of view, but professionally misidentified for sure. But yeah. So Madeline, I mean, you're doing macro type views. You're having conversations at different levels. Where would you? How would you describe Jason's sort of position? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Where are you aligned and where are you disaligned with what Jason kind of had laid out there?
Yeah, thank you. And I refer to you as an analyst all the time. So I disagree with that statement. I think you are an analyst. You do the best ATS reports. But in terms of what Jason said, I agree 100%. I think there's a big disconnect with where companies are at with their AI transformation and what they're thinking about and how they're looking at, really using AI for good and kind of, advancing. But I think we're behind in TA and HR. But I will say that we're a lot further along than we were even a year ago. Like, we see that in our research. Like, companies are more mature in their adoption of AI. There's more interest than we've seen before, more demand. Even when we did research a couple of years ago, like, the biggest fear was it's going to replace our job, or a lot of fear around introducing bias into the talent acquisition process. I think that still exists, but companies are now recognizing there are more benefits. We just did a big research project on AI for candidate experience. And it was very interesting to look at that, because if somebody doesn't get a job, what creates a good experience? Because the best experience is somebody gets a job. But if they don't get the job, the best experience is they were given a fair opportunity, and it was transparent and it was consistent. And that can't be done with humans when recruiters are dealing with so many different things. That can be done with AI. So there's a lot of potential there. So I think we've come a long way, but the biggest thing that I hear all the time from companies, and it's a little surprising given what Jason said, which is where everyone else in the organization is companies saying for the first time, like, we're going to buy AI. It's like, okay, what are you buying? AI. It's like, but what does that mean? Where are you using it? What are you looking at? What solutions are you looking at? And they can't get past that piece of it. It's just we're now buying AI. We have thumbs up. We're excited about it, but we have no idea and no understanding of the providers and the value and the different use cases for it. I think, Jason brought up skills, and I think it's similar. Like, we're seeing that companies have moved past the why skills-based talent approaches. They understand the value. They want to embrace it, just like AI, and they go hand in hand, obviously, but they don't know where to get started. And so I think we're in this stuck period of we're excited about AI. We know there's potential there, but we don't know how to evaluate providers.
Yeah, very interesting. Paul, going to you on this. You're a guy that has, you've got the freedom of being an independent, which I think is sometimes a responsibility, Paul. Because you can check out what's going on and generally, have a view as to where the state of play is. How would you kind of balance the conversation, the inputs that Jason and Madeline just described? I mean, does the world that they've described look real to you, or how would you add to it? How would you actually challenge it in any way?
It's all very salient. Just as an aside, though, I will ask you a question in a second. Steve put in the chat about a book called The Algorithm by Hilke Schulman. This is it. It should be sort of required text for, I think, anybody that's in on this conversation. I think we're at a crossroads or a fork in the road at the moment. And I think we need to not level up, that's the wrong expression, lift up the discussion, particularly around TA and AI. So I'm delighted that, thanks for inviting me on, Hung, and thanks for having this. So strategically, PwC's CEO report, which they published at Davos this year, stated that 42% of CEOs in the UK are already stating that they're using in some way or other generative AI in their operations. That's significantly higher than Germany, probably not a surprise, 9%, France 20%, even higher than China and the US, and is outperformed only by Norway and Finland at the moment. And then the OECD, $15.7 trillion worth to the global economy. Generative AI will input by 2030. That is only 6 years away. So to the point about not being at the table, we won't be at the table unless we actually start to professionalize and conceptualize our ideas and thoughts about what that is. And there's the challenge around this. So I hear a lot of talk about AI as talent acquisition, but little discussion or less discussion. And in some cases, the talk is not that much different to years ago, and SES is going to take the boring bits out of the process, leaving to the interesting bits. Well, we're in a world of lifelong learning now, so we've got to learn to do what the interesting bits are, and then take a bit out of the algorithm book. And I think she's quite right that technological advances are operating at such a pace that most TA and HR execs haven't the ability, because they haven't been involved in the discussion, to keep pace with what's out there. And then what you find happening is that we sometimes implement solutions based around clients. I'm going to be controversial here, so facial expressions or tone of voice, which hasn't had adequate validation and isn't necessarily complicit with the skills or the jobs that we want to hire their force. There's a great deal more that we need to do. And then the other thing I just want to throw in as a not as a spanner in the works, but a very little discussion around the impact, particularly in Europe, 2025, of the impact of the EU Artificial Intelligence Act, which is going to be like GDPR on steroids, particularly as recruitment and talent acquisition is considered high risk, and there are quite a lot of significant mitigations that would need to take place on that. So I've thrown a few things in there. I've tried to say a few things that might be difficult to hear. But seriously, as a profession, we really need to up our game to go first with the concept. Just
what does that
might mean just ripping up processes which generally been in for the last 20 or 30 years, but only doing that by aligning ourselves with what the strategy of a business is. And going to Adam about skills, hiring for skills. Yes, it's hiring for skills, but also it's we've moved from careers into lifelong learning, and I think there's a reconnect that we really need to make with learning and development as well.
All right, thanks a lot for that, Paul. No worries. By the way, I think, Paul, your audio might be chopping in and out. I don't know whether anybody else is struggling to hear every single word, but it was some bits and bobs on that. So just check that out next time around. Before we got the gist, what's interesting here is, we're hearing this mantra of, look, we all are up our game. Do we actually understand why our game isn't up already? What's the theory behind? Let's just accept for argument's sake, because we don't have obviously a 3 hour, we don't have all day to argue it through. Let's just accept the fundamental premise that HRTA are currently not leading the conversation in workforce transformation as far as how the CEOs think about it. So we're not really at the same level as that. Why is that the case? Why are we the laggards? I've got a theory, but I want to hear your theory on this. Adam, feel free to contribute.
Yeah, I think it's important for us not to be too hard on ourselves, because if you take talent acquisition is a small population within a typical organization. HR is not a huge population either, but if you like, HSBC has 300,000 people. There's 1,500. There's a huge talent acquisition team in there, 1,500 people. But that's 0.5% of the total population of that organization. So we are really quite small, and we're also not a technology function. That's not what we are. So internal, information security functions and IT functions and internal software functions and things like that, they are the technology functions. So what our role has to be is around the functional application of what they want to help us to do, or they are able to enable us with. So there's a partnering process here, but we're not the technologists. So I don't think anybody's expecting us to be so. However, those TA teams that are super partnering with whoever they need to partner with to make sure that they're getting the very best of what artificial intelligence is going to be able to offer us, there's going to be a massive gap between what they can do and what a team that isn't doing that can do. And we also have to remember that everybody on this call is in the top 1% of people in talent acquisition who know about these subjects, and that would go for probably pretty much everybody that's actually joined this call as well. This is not a representative group of the overall global talent acquisition population. So just a few things that I think are realistic.
All right, a good summary, Adam. Essentially, to condense that, you're saying that, TA cannot be expected to be leading any conversation given the size of our function and generally where we sit within what the purpose of the organization is. I think that's broadly fair. I mean, maybe we're overstating it. Maybe it is the case that we shouldn't be the primary driver. It's not our wheelhouse, so to say. But we need to kind of connect with functions that should be driving this and keeping alert that way. I think that's fairly a legitimate observation. Okay, theory. Why are HRTA laggards, Madeline?
So I agree with Adam. I think, and kind of one twist to that is I think TA is responsible for so much. I mean, for a lot of talent acquisition professionals, their work and responsibilities have doubled and tripled, and now we're adding in contingent workforce or internal mobility and workforce planning. So to become also an AI expert or transformation expert is just one more thing on this list of many things that they have to be responsible for. So I think that that's definitely part of it too. And then I think there's a lot of things happening within organizations around AI, like internal committees, and steering committees within organization, and TA is not being invited to be part of that. So is that on the fault of TA and HR for not forcing themselves in those conversations, or is that the organization not thinking to include, to Adam's point, a small population within that? So we're seeing that TA and HR tend to be behind, and that's not a new thing. But I do also think the vendor community contributes to that as well. We have a really complex ecosystem, and there are startups that have taken a lot of investment, too much investment. Adam and I have talked about this a lot, and they don't necessarily have a way to support these companies in becoming transformation experts. So we have a really complex ecosystem. Companies don't know how to navigate it. I mean, it's my job full time to navigate this ecosystem and look at providers, and it's hard for me to stay on top of. How can we expect TA professionals to do that and to figure out who really has AI and who's really a provider that they can trust?
Let me interrupt you right there, Madeline, because I think that's a really important point and a bit of insight that only someone like you could provide. What Madeline is saying there, as I understand it, is that we need to have partners, external partners, software producers, providers, people who build the tools for us. We need to have them in order to activate anything with regards to AI transformation or AI enablement. But we've got such a complex and fragmented ecosystem out there, is that we're actually having a procurement problem. We don't know how to select this product. It's just too complicated. So perhaps as that market matures, I mean, does it actually consolidate? I don't know. Maybe it just fragments even further, and we never get to the point where we're able to select. Perhaps we need some sort of AI procurement bot to help us do that. But perhaps in future we will see that type of scenario. But we're a little bit, I wouldn't say spoiled for choice, but we're a little bit like dazzled by what's the term? Opportunity, too much opportunity, and we're not able to progress any further. Paul, you want to come in?
Yeah, just following on from, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're fine. Go ahead.
Okay, just following on from that, I think one of the challenges that we've had, and to the vendor space, is that there's so much out there. Sometimes there are solutions without a problem. And as TA leaders, we educate ourselves, go through our own transition and transformation. We need to identify all of the problems that we need to solve. Some of those solutions will involve types of AI, and that may be machine learning, it may be generative AI. But we need to have a consistent approach that is aligned to the business needs and business objectives around what problems we're trying to solve. And that should inform the types of solutions we need. And I think in terms of our maturity over the last few years, sometimes we've started to implement bells and whistles solutions where there aren't problems because they seem good. That's, I mean, to an extent, I'm agreeing with a lot of what Jason said in his article on that.
All right, I get what you're saying, Paul. And I think you're probably the majority of you. I personally like the bells and whistles, man. To be honest, let's just invent crazy crap. It doesn't matter. Let the market decide. Okay, let's switch to you, Jason. Final word. By the way, we're going to bring Jane Curran on, and one of her team members from JLL. They're going to talk to us about their own transformation on TA. Maybe we've got a live example that will show us kind of how some companies are going to operate. But before we do that, final word to Jason. Why do you think HRTA are laggards, if that is the premise that we're going to go with?
Yeah, and I can't wait to get some more Chicago on this call, so I'll be quick. I'll answer the question this way. I think our future, closing the gap, runs through analytics. I think there's truth to everything that's been said, but I think the way that I think about this, it's less about what we do. And some of the hang up is around how we do it. The first time I saw this was in grad school. My MBA, I have concentrations in organizational behavior on the one hand and finance on the other. I was that guy in all of my classes. Nobody liked me. And but what I walked away with was an understanding of how the operators and the financial folks look at HR, which is we've got to help the organization understand if we can do the things that we are supposed to do as a company to go make money. And if we can't, what we've got to do get to that point, whether it's training people or hiring people, whatever the case is. And the language that side of the business speaks is numbers and analytics. It's not just a deck about strategy. It's not just a deck about, or an ROI on a particular tool. It is, what are the business goals, like Paul was saying, but what are they financially? What does it take? What kind of investment is going to be required to do this? Do we automate? Do we hire? Do we bring in contingent work? That set of questions has to come first, and then we get to what ATS do we need? How do we optimize the candidate experience? How do we make sure, now that we have the goal set, that we can do the things that we said we were going to do? And I think PA and HR have a habit of jumping straight into what are we going to do, without first understanding what is the business trying to do and how do we enable that? Who are we to them? Now let's get in our box and solve all the problems that we've got in front of us.
That's a really a great way to summarize it. And by the way, Jason, that is my theory. My theory is that ultimately TA is fearful of change because change might mean a diminishment. And I think that's one of the things that's causing us to fail to push forward with AI-enabled future. You speak to any CEO, C-level person, their vision of the future of an organization is smaller than it was before. We've hit peak organization probably already in 2021, I would say. So a smaller company means less recruiting. And I think fundamentally, even though we're not conscious of it, viscerally, we think, oh my goodness, what does that mean for our function department? What we need
it means Madeline. What Madeline said is exactly what folks need to do. Get involved in those cross-functional committees and the working groups. Sorry.
100% we need to do that, but we need to actually expand scope beyond just hiring external hires. And our fundamental problem, and it has been there for the last couple of years, is that we're just focusing purely on the TA aspect of it, talent acquisition. The terminology is even wrong because maybe we don't want to acquire, maybe we want to borrow, maybe we want to partner. Are we the function that does talent delivery rather than talent acquisition? And we need to make that transformation internally. Otherwise, we are definitely going to shrink as the function of TA shrinks as well. Anyway, that's my theory. Folks, Madeline Laurano, Paul Maxin, and Jason Seiden, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to bring on Jane and Lavanya now. Wonderful to have you guys. We'll see you around soon. I think I'm going to be seeing you all on stage or events pretty shortly, aren't we? So great to see you all. And we'll connect with you soon, okay? Cool. Folks, whilst we're getting Jane and Lavanya on, we always do this in the middle of every show. Very, very important because as we come off air, as we inevitably have to come off air, we don't want Brainfood Live to be a conversation stopping show. This is a conversation starting show. So if you're interested in the future of TA, you're interested to understand sort of how we can not only stay relevant, but help drive the AI enablement of organizations. This is a good chance for you to connect with people that share this passion. So grab your LinkedIn URL, share it in the chat stream if you're watching this on Crowdcast. If you're watching this on any of the LinkedIn URLs out there, I think, Paul, you're broadcasting this. If you're connected to Jason, he's also broadcasting this. Adam is broadcasting this. Go ahead and drop your LinkedIn URL in the comment thread there, and then make sure you connect with everyone who's done the same. Worst case, you walk away from this with loads of people that are connected with this conversation and want to get in. So, okay, we're going to get Jane Curran on. Wonderful, Jane Curran. And I think Lavanya, if I've got you there properly, Lavanya's in Delhi. Poor. I hope she's not hanging on too late. There she is, Jane Curran. On brand as well, Jane. I like it. Oh, Jane, I think you're muted. I demuted Jane. How do I do that? Oh, maybe I've done that. Okay, cool.
Switching each other. You're going down, up, down, up. I think that's what's happening there.
Yeah, no worries. But Jane, wonderful to see you. And whilst Lavanya is coming on, I wonder whether, Jane, you could introduce yourself real quick. Who are you? What it is you do?
Sure. Jane Curran, I lead talent acquisition and HR services at JLL. We're a commercial real estate firm. We have about 100,000 employees. We provide services to owners and occupiers. From a TA perspective, our team's about 300. We have about 7,000 open positions. and I work very closely with Lavanya, who's on, she's my tech partner. So a lot of the things were resonating that you were just talking about, and we go to the business together. There's so much good tech out there, but I realized if I can't get the business bought in, I don't know, I'm doing it for myself because I think it's a great thing to do. But we prove the business case together, help them understand the value, whether it's automation, time savings, whatever the case may be, and then we go forth to make that decision. But Lavanya, over to you. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. This is Lavanya. I'm based out of India. I lead the technology project for HR Stack, working very closely with Jane on recruitment technology. And here we are in the world of AI, exploring, learning things together. That's about me.
Fantastic to see you, actually to hear you, Lavanya. Do fiddle around with your camera though. We want to make sure we get you on screen. There should be a settings gears button towards the bottom of your screen. Hit that and see if you can flick the camera on.
It's not actually on this. I think there's something off with my computer. So allow me for a minute. I don't want to restart it in between this. I'll try and be on a camera in a minute.
Yep. Okay. No worries.
The irony of you, Hung, the irony of you telling an actual technologist what to do.
Well, I mean, I just walk around feeling comfortable being incompetent, Adam. That's the secret. But Jane, focus on the conversation we've had thus far. You've listened to people like Jason and Madeline and talk about sort of where the state of the conversation is, and we don't want to be one of these conversations where we start browbeating TA about not being at the top table and all this kind of stuff. That's not the purpose of this. But it's interesting to just kind of touch on the initial observations that perhaps businesses are thinking on at this level in terms of how an AI-enabled future looks, and then TA or HR are thinking at a different level. So what are your thoughts on that conversation? Do you think it's a fair characterization in terms of where we're at right now?
I think we've been at the forefront, right? So no one had to ask us to show up at the table. We were pushing. So I think maybe that's a bit different for us, is that we aren't afraid of the future. I am helping the team understand the vision of the future is that we spend more time on the human-enabled work and not the task-driven work. So with that, we've been able to have the right conversations with the right people and get either funding or excitement around some of the things we want to do around automation. So I guess I feel a little bit different in the sense that, like, I'm not afraid, and as a leader, I'm about progress over perfection, and we're going to go to that table, go to those meetings, and find ways to get involved to bring the AI to our function. I mean, after marketing, I think recruitment is the most likely to have automation opportunities. So Lavanya and I are like, bring it on. What are we going to do? When are we going to do it? I think, Hung, you and I talked about a little bit earlier this week that the only frustration is that the business wants to go first, right? So they're like, yeah, we'll get to you. And that's where Lavanya comes in. And Lavanya, I don't know if you want to talk about, just last week you were in Gurgaon, and our company was hosting a bit of an AI innovation summit, and maybe you could just share some things that came out of that for HR.
Yeah, I think for HR, it's basically giving the power of programming to them in common English words by prompting. So that's what I will say. I think generative AI, obviously there is element of AI, there's risk involved, but I think where what we understood is there's a lot of potential, there's a lot of work which happens manually, and we can actually, I wouldn't use the word automate, but we can use Gen AI to augment and improve efficiency. And we not only had sessions with HR, but with a lot of other teams, and we found the same theme. Like, most of the work happening across big enterprises, at least like JLL, has potential to use generative AI. Now, one thing which you said earlier, Hang, and I think I was hearing the discussion was like, okay, is it going to replace our jobs? I think people have moved away from that. People understand that it's not going to replace, but they don't know how it will not replace. So I think theoretically, a lot of education around this. In fact, last week also what we did was on how it's going to help augment and how it's important for human to stay still in the loop with all these technology advancements. So maybe the job you were doing, which took 7 hours, will actually now take 3 hours. And then you could go back and do the work which you like. So I think that has been the mantra. Now, in terms of opportunities, a lot of apps which we are planning to build. But before we even go to ops, the normal apps, the normal power of GPT in terms of simply prompting, doing a sentiment analysis for you, or summarizing some stuff for you, trying, simple things like finding sarcasm in a sentiment. You could use the power of that and not waste a lot of time. So those are like very simple examples, but from recruitment world, I think, Jane, you could give more examples in terms of how we have progressed in last 2 years with the matching functionalities and whatnot we've implemented.
Jane, before we get into the minutiae, thank you for that, Lavanya. And we definitely want to see those examples, don't we, folks? We're going to get some of those in a second. But I do want to isolate sort of why you feel that JLL is different from the competition, and how much of that is actually driven by your own sort of vision on this, Jane. Because, again, I'm not here to throw flowers up behind in any way, but I get the feeling that, a different leader in that function actually would produce like dramatically different direction and pace. So how come you decided that this is something you're going to drive? I mean, there's all kinds of competing priorities that a global TA leader has. We talk about all the traditional stuff: quality of hire, candidate experience, retention of staff. We've had this crazy period where we've had, a grow, and then a major chop back and reshuffle. You can totally imagine that, AI enablement is going to just fall down the priority list. And, that's something I'm going to do tomorrow. So how come you're able to elevate that up? Like, what is the difference between how you approach this challenge and maybe some of your peers currently haven't?
I think it starts with maybe, Adam, what you had said earlier. I mean, you have to start with the business objective. What are we trying to do as a business? And everything is around efficiency and effectiveness. So when I look at my function, which is one of the largest in the HR department by far, is the recruiting department, it will always kind of have like an arrow on your back, like you're big, right? So how good are you? How efficient are you? How effective are you? So for me, when the business grows, and we're going to keep growing, I look around and I'm going, okay, is it always going to be through humans? Are we just going to grow through humans and hiring more people, hiring more recruiters to hire more people? And I just don't think that's the future. So for me, I always like to be in control of the destiny of my team and my department. And in order to have that, I have to be forward thinking. You can't put all of this tech back in a bottle and say, well, I'm not interested. Like it's coming, it's here. And for me, it was the partnership I have with my technology department. I mean, I feel so lucky that they're so advanced as well. And I've talked to many vendors who are like, either you come alone or the tech people come alone, but rarely do you guys come together. And we always go together, because I may be the subject matter expert in recruitment, but Lavanya and team are the subject experts in tech. So if we come together, we just come with a different solution. I learned early on that I would listen to all my favorite vendors and I would fall in love with I'm like, oh my God, of course. And then I was like, oh, I better get tech involved. And that's how this all started to happen. So I was like, I'm a sucker. I'm totally falling for all of their pitches. This all sounds great. And then you had to weed out, well, what's reality and what's just, well, that sounds great, but that actually isn't here yet. And they're selling you something you're not ready for. So for me, that's the difference. It was just that I see the future, the business imperative is there. I have to run the most efficient and effective HR TA department. And in order to do that, it has to be tech enabled.
Really well said. And maybe the key differentiator is that relationship with technology. Folks, do you have that key relationship with technology in your business? Everyone, I think, in the TA immediately thinks I need to have a great relationship with HR, I need to have a great relationship with marketing, and then I need to have a great relationship with the line. In other words, the people that you're delivering services to. But how many of you are thinking I need to have a great relationship with technology? The folks that are actually building the infrastructure or the software or the data that's powering your business. Maybe that's the step one that you need to take, because if you're charging forward, and as you say, the vendors are wonderful. They're also wonderful salespeople. That's what they're there for. They're there to sell the dream. Of course they are. And we're going to sit there and we're going to say yes to it. It probably is incrementally better than what we had, but is it the optimal solution? And is it actually on the right? Is it actually in alignment with our career strategy, should I say, going forward? We've yet to know that. We've got to get the technology folks in there. Okay, go ahead, Adam. You're saying.
Yeah, I love the way I love a lot of the things that Jane just said. So, question for Jane and Lavanya, because I said earlier, it's really important to partner with internal technology teams to make all this happen. I do feel like it's a bad idea to try and go up into if your TA is part of HR, which it often is. I feel like it's a bad idea to go up into HR and then try and become part of an HR program. Just go directly to tech. But I've never done the job that you two are in, so I've got no idea. What's your comments on that?
I would say TA, depending on the year, gets a lot more attention or less attention. So coming out of COVID, right, everyone went on hiring sprees. So everyone was really interested in investing in how to make this team more efficient and effective. Obviously, it wanes with the market. But I think we've built such a strong story that we have a backlog. We work in sprints. We've got a rhythm. What are we doing just to improve the tech we own? What are we building the business case to buy more tech? But to your point, Adam, I'm always in competition with the other pillars of HR. So what does rewards need, right? What does operations need? So I think the level of investment kind of varies depending on the year, but the vision is always there, right? We're a people business. We're always going to need great people. And how do you make folks get through that funnel faster? Depending on we do I always say from the boiler room to the boardroom. So I've got a lot of high volume positions. I've got engineers, wrench turners I need, all the way up to, brokers. So Lavanya and I are trying to really figure out what tech is needed for what type of recruitment. And I think at the beginning we were trying to do peanut butter, like everyone can use all the tech the same. Well, that's not true. So I think we're now focused on what is needed to make the most impact at the lowest cost. And that's kind of driving our design right now.
Okay, amazing. Lavanya and Jane, let's talk about some of these recruiter specific applications that have been built or are in pipe. What are those things? How can you describe them? What do you expect to? What's the benefit that you think you're going to deliver once these things are in place?
I'll talk about what we would bring from the outside, and then maybe Lavanya, if you can talk about maybe what we're building internally.
Yeah.
So I think some things that we need to perfect in our tech stack would be bulk interviewing, mass interview scheduling. How do you kind of maybe skip through some of the screening steps we've been doing? If our matching technology works, which we have, how do you get that recruiter, a top list of 3 candidates versus slugging through reviewing hundreds of resumes? So I think that's kind of what we're focused on this year is adding a few more components. We're really excited about a referral tool we're looking into to automate that. Our number one source of hire is referrals. Our number one applicant obviously comes through in job boards and all that, but who gets hired is strong referrals. They stay longer, attrition is lower. So we're really excited about adding that to our tech stack. And you can turn that up and down, right? Maybe you have a campaign in a city for a certain number of positions. We'll turn up the referral bonus, right? It's automated. People don't lose their referrals. So I think those are some of the things that we're looking at this year to add from an external perspective. But Lavanya, what do you think we're doing internally to automate?
Internally, I think we are supplementing the existing technologies, like, for example, matching, which Jane spoke about. So how do we make sure matching is better? That means our job descriptions are better. So as long as the JD is good, that's when my matching is going to be good. So I think we are now using, earlier we did not have Gen AI when we had already built the matching. Now we're going to be using power of Gen AI to generate the right job descriptions. There are multiple players in this right now. We have a SaaS solution for our recruitment. So should we go with something they're offering or should we do something custom? So our strategy continues to be build and buy, but I think we are assessing what is going to be giving us best results. So I think generating job descriptions is one of the biggest things which we're planning to do this year in terms of recruitment.
Yeah, the build. I mean, it's wonderful that there's an existing kind of resource available this way. And I'm sure a lot of people will be watching this show and thinking, you know what, how can I not have a best friend like Lavanya here? What's going on? you know what, how do you build that relationship, Jane? Like, how did that happen? It wasn't just bequeathed to you, I assume. The default state is that most functions are in silos in some way, or at least previously be dependent on, you know, the previous relationships, and then the relationship between departments can often be overly dependent on the relationship between the human beings there. So you arrive, how do you make sure that TA has a great relationship with technology?
I think you have to start by being humble. Like, I don't look at Lavanya and her team as like order takers. I don't look at them like, I've got this great idea, I've, you know, bought it, designed it, now just go implement it. Like, I'm not smart enough to do that. So for me, it was just purely, I need to advance my function quickly. Like, this stuff is moving so fast that I don't know, I'm humble, I'm respectful, and I'm like, Lavanya and team, I need to do this with you. I literally can't go start making technology decisions on my own. And the other thing that changed for us, Hung, this was back in 2018, was really when the journey started. We went to a global ATS. Prior to 2018, as big as we were, you know, we operated whatever country you were in, you had to make, maybe you had this ATS, maybe you had no ATS, who knows? In 2018, the firm made a huge investment to have a global, you know, system. And once that happened, well, then I'm like, well, now this is fair game. Nobody can make independent, random country decisions. There's some reasons for compliance. Somebody might need something. But from that point on, we're all going to start building this tech stack together. And then we can scale and move faster. So I think that was really important to me, was that you had one thing to build upon. And once we had that, then it was just, okay, what are we going to build and when?
Right. And I think on the technology side, Hong, I'll just add one more time. I think what we did was to align ourselves to HR COEs. Like, a few of us are dedicated with Jane, a few of us are dedicated with the rewards. I think that way we understand what are the big priorities for each vertical. And sometimes two priorities of two verticals come together to deliver much bigger impact. So I think we've gone to, when Jane spoke about trends, I think there's a lot of energy we booked in terms of prioritization. What are we going to try solve together, and how big is the impact? So I think those are those operational changes a lot, which also help and help to see the changes together and the problems together, and also most importantly, solutions.
Yeah, very good. I mean, we're going to look forward to keep tracking where you guys are on, because it's a fascinating and ongoing, I don't want to call it a case study because it's not a stop-start. This is an ongoing kind of relationship, ongoing building of tooling and technology. So we're definitely going to be exploring this further. And I'd actually love to have this idea of, you know, maybe doing a conversation on how TA/HR has conversations with technology, because we struggle on the recruiting side with recruiting technologists. Maybe we also carry some of that problems with, you know, when we interact with them as colleagues. I wonder whether we could learn something from you guys on this as well, because I think it would be amazing if we had more companies out there that were just more comfortable having conversations with the technology function. Okay, folks, listen, we have to bring it to a close because time is pressing and Lavanya needs to go to bed. Thank you so much, Lavanya, for joining us. I know it's very late for you over there. Jane, wonderful to see you as always. We'll make sure we'll connect again soon. And yeah, we'll let you go. We'll let you two go at this point. Thanks a lot, guys. Smart team, man. I mean, I need to identify more teams of that type, because it'll be interesting just to see how progressive TA/HR teams are actually moving forward. Excuse me. I think that provides basically just a case study, and a little bit more of a, you know, ground some of the exhortations into reality. It's all very well saying do better, but let's see how we go with that. Okay, cool. Listen, we have out of time. We have to let it go at this point. We are back next week as we always are. We're going to be talking about developer skills reports. HackerRank are going to be coming on. Hopefully, we're going to get two of the C-level guys on HackerRank. Vivek, hopefully, and Juan are joining us. They do one of the best researchers every year, where they are polling their developer community, but they're also bringing in their behavioral data from their testing platform, and will be able to tell you what technologies developers care about, what technologies they're leaning towards and leaning away from, what is it they like or don't like about technical testing, what is the pass rate on various technologies, how do they feel about AI in the technical testing side. So if you're recruiting for technology people and you're using some sort of technology tool to help you assess those folks, you need to sign up to that show. We'll be back next week, 22nd of March at 2 p.m. GMT. Okay, thanks a lot, everybody. We'll see you next time. Cool. All right, man.
That was a really great show. Did we cover what you expected to cover around like artificial? Was it because we talked a lot about artificial intelligence? Is that what you intended?
Well, obviously, I've adequately briefed you, Adam. But no, the intention was.
I never get briefed.
You don't get briefed, do you? Yeah, just turn up. No, the idea was really was Jason's post. It was like, look, are we talking about fiddling around with like job descriptions? That's important. Don't get me wrong, but that's very tactical.
Very tactical.
Whereas CEOs are thinking, right, we're going to get rid of like this entire function. Do you know what I mean? We're going to completely get rid of this. Like, and I do think the reason why we're not in that conversation is because we're frightened at the shrinking of a company or the disaggregation of a company. And the answer to that is not be frightened, is to expand the scope of what we do and say, look, we're not about growing a company per se in terms of headcount, but we're there about delivering talent to when the people need it. It's quite possible to have a very, very small team, 10-person organization. You've got Adam at peak. I think that's your ambition. Well, you're probably going to be interacting with, 24 more different types of people in a non-employee basis as you grow your business. So why isn't a function, a TA, a talent delivery function, helping you with that and figuring out, which types of resources are involved? They shouldn't necessarily be the C-level doing it. So the future, I think, is there. It's just going to look different. We've got to grasp it. Anyway, cool.
Yeah, we covered it. We covered it. That was a really great show. Every guest contributed loads.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we've got a hidden person on screen here. I don't know. This sometimes happens when there's a residual person. So it's like a ghost individual who's frightened to come on. Anyway, listen. We'll see you next week. What are you doing? And anything interesting this week? This weekend?
I'm going to watch Scotland hopefully beat Ireland 77-0 and lift tomorrow in the rugby and lift the Six Nations.
Is that what they have to do? Or is it France lead?
We have to beat Ireland by 40 points and also other games to go in our favour. It's not going to happen.
That's not happening. Who's winning it?
France. It's England or Ireland, to be honest.
Is it? All right. I've not kept it.
France is very unlikely. France have got as much chance as Scotland does, but they could. France, Scotland, Ireland, and England could all win it, but it's going to be England or Ireland.
Fair play.
Considering England are so bad, and they win it.
Yeah, it's desperate, isn't it? So there we go. All right, let's hope for Scotland, or if not, then Ireland. All right, I'll see you later, mate.
Cheers, bye.
All right, that's it, everybody. We'll see you next week. Make sure you sign up to Recruiting Brainfood on Sunday. That's going to be rocking, and yeah, we'll see you next Friday. Okay.